Hurricanes, Prepare, Know, Survive is brought to you by Joe's Crab Shack.
Good afternoon, team.
Hi there.
The thing about hurricane season is we know it's coming every year, but every year is completely different, so we can never really know exactly what to expect.
Just because this is forecast to be an average season doesn't mean it's not going to be our year to get a storm. Does anybody have any questions?
When Hurricane Alicia hit, I was 16 years old. I was living in Spring at the time, and I specifically remember thinking to myself, wow, I did not know trees could bend like that. When the storm was over, some friends and I got in my truck and went around the neighborhood helping clean up. I couldn't believe the damage. I mean, I'd been through thunderstorms and I'd heard about hurricanes, but I had never seen anything like this.
That was the moment when I knew I wanted to become a meteorologist. I wanted to understand these things. And more than that, I wanted to prepare myself, my friends, everybody I could, help get prepared for the next big storm.
Preparation is the single most important thing you can do for a hurricane. It's more than just having a flashlight or a few bottles of water laying around. Hurricanes are serious, long-term events, and it's incredibly important to know what you need and get it ahead of time.
Hi, I'm meteorologist Cheetah Craft, and hurricane season is upon us. Are you prepared? Well, to get you prepared, we call on Captain Lozano to help us out.
Absolutely, Cheetah. The first thing you need to have a kit ready. An emergency preparedness kit is going to be your best friend during a hurricane.
Is there a one-stop shop where we can go and just get all of this already built in?
Well, we got ours at the Red Cross store. You can go online. They cost you no more than about $50, and it comes pretty much well stocked, but you do got to customize it.
Okay, tell us what you mean.
Well, let's say you wear glasses. Make sure you have a spare, because the last thing you want is to lose your glasses in the middle of a hurricane.
Of course.
The other thing that you might need to think about is your medication.
Right.
If you have certain prescriptions, certain needs, make sure that you include that in your emergency kit.
So how much water does each person need per day?
The Houston Fire Department recommends 1 gallon of water per person per day and have at least a 7-day supply.
Batteries are needed, of course, for the flashlight. How many batteries would you suggest?
A set of batteries probably lasts you 2 days because you're going to be using them a lot more during a hurricane. So have at least 4 sets for a week.
And we can't forget our phone chargers, right?
Absolutely. Everybody knows that you need your charger. But if you have power, it's great to have your wall charger. But if we lose power, buy a car charger for your phone so you can use your car as a backup.
Okay, and let's talk about cell signal.
If a cell tower goes down, you need a backup. So we always recommend that you have a weather radio for a backup to your cell phone.
That's a good point.
All right, you've got your preparedness kit, so you and your family are ready. Now it's time to protect your home.
When a hurricane comes, I'll be at work. So the trick is to make this as organized and easy as possible. The most important part of your home to protect are your windows. Even a Category 1 hurricane can have winds up to 95 miles an hour, more than enough to get debris flying around. Your windows are the most vulnerable part of your home. Even if one breaks and no one gets hurt by the broken glass, you got a big problem with rain and debris getting into your house. I use plywood to protect the windows. Don't use tape, it doesn't do anything. Next thing to do is look in the backyard and make sure everything is secure. Kids' toys, lawn furniture, even garbage cans and lids, all things that can become flying debris during a hurricane. Do yourself, do your neighbors a favor, store it inside a garage or inside your house. My rule of thumb, if I can lift it myself, it's in danger of becoming a missile during a hurricane. There are some very important things you need to do inside your home as well. Your best bet is going to be to unplug all your electronics. And if you live in a low-lying area that's flood-prone, make sure all your electronics and perishable items are up off the ground. Power's going to probably be out for a long time. Make sure your batteries are all charged before the storm hits. If it's a big storm, the electricity may be out and your water may stop flowing as well. That's why it's a great idea to fill up things like bathtubs, even your washing machine, all the way up before the storm hits. Now, you're not going to drink this water, but this water will be used for very important things like flushing your toilet. And even if your water does keep flowing, make sure it's safe to drink. A lot of times during these big hurricanes, water supplies can get contaminated. So you may be thinking about getting a generator. They can definitely make things much more comfortable after a storm, but they can also be dangerous. If you're going to use one, make sure it's outside, at least 15 feet away from any window, so the toxic exhaust fumes don't get in and cause a problem. Don't try to plug too many things into it at once. It can become a fire hazard. And remember, these things run on gasoline, same stuff that powers your car, which brings us to your car.
If a big hurricane hits, chances are there won't be any gasoline for a while. We saw this after Hurricane Alicia, we saw it after Hurricane Ike. Lines of people desperately trying to get the gasoline they needed because their tanks were empty. This may sound weird, but it's a great idea to keep your gas tank 3/4 full during hurricane season. That way, you already have the gas you need sitting in your tank. Just because your gas tank is full doesn't mean you should plan to leave if a hurricane is heading our way. Just ask anyone who lived here in 2005. Hurricane Rita, a massive Category 5 hurricane, came barreling into the Gulf of Mexico hot on the heels of Hurricane Katrina. Only this time, Houston was in the crosshairs. Millions tried to evacuate, overloading the roadways and causing gridlock along every evacuation route. People died sitting in their cars, trying to escape from a hurricane that would wind up missing the Houston area altogether. It was a tough, tragic lesson that we should never forget.
That is not to say that some people shouldn't evacuate. We update the plan each year, work with the city of Houston, and it's all done by zip code. It depends on the size and strength of the storm that's approaching as to who gets called to move, but it's usually the coastal areas like Galveston Island, Bolivar Peninsula, west side of Galveston Bay. Some inland areas may also be asked to evacuate, areas that we know are low-lying and are susceptible to flood. Bottom line though, if your zip code is not called, we ask you at least at first to stay put so that folks on the coast in the most danger can have clear roads to get to safety.
During Hurricane Ike, more Houstonians listened to the evacuation calls. Danger areas were mostly empty when the storm hit, and the roadways were able to handle the evacuating traffic. This saved lives.
It's surprising sometimes how quickly these storms can form, especially in the Gulf of Mexico. But the good news is we can usually see them coming and give you advanced warning. But I cannot stress this enough. You have got to be prepared. If you are new to the area or you've never been through a hurricane before, make sure you are prepared this year. And if you've grown up here all your life and you've been through these things before, then you know what to expect. Make sure your hurricane kit is complete. Make sure your family is ready. Make sure your home is prepared. Don't get caught panic buying supplies at the last second. What you need, most likely, will not be left on the shelf for you. The more you prepare, the more we all prepare, the better off we're going to be.
When we come back, the storm is here. What you need to know and how that knowledge can help you keep your family safe.
You've heard the saying, knowledge is power. That is never more true than when you're dealing with hurricanes.
Well, good morning, guys. How are you? Good. Well, my name is Brooks Garner. I'm a meteorologist at KHOU 11 News, and today we're going to talk about hurricanes for safety. So as a meteorologist, I've had the opportunity to have a very unique insight into the very core of Earth's most powerful storms. I got a chance in 2012 to fly into Hurricane Sandy with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration aboard their P3 Hurricane Hunter. Let me tell you, that was a wild ride.
One of the requirements for being a meteorologist is taking a course entirely on hurricanes. That, combined with my firsthand experience, helps me understand what makes these incredible storms tick.
So I looked Hurricane Sandy in the eye, and that experience has made me a better meteorologist with tropical weather forecasting. So I'm going to take that experience and help apply it so when a big storm threatens, people are better prepared. Storm surge. It's a word you'll hear a lot when we're talking about hurricanes. It's the first thing you need to know about because it can show up in hours, even days before the storm. Now you might be thinking, I live in Houston, I see flooding all the time. Well, you're right. But storm surge is a completely different animal. Hurricane Ike, for example, had a storm surge of 16 to 20 feet. When compared to the Galveston Island seawall, that's more than enough to overtop. Now, if Ike had tracked just 20 miles farther west, which is such a tiny amount in the scale of a hurricane, Galveston could have been flooded and destroyed, just like the Bolivar Peninsula was back in '08.
All right, Dr. Frank joins us, and we're looking at your slide collection before and after, after the storm surge hit Ike.
Now look at this. There was 115 homes that I counted in this picture before the storm. Now let's look and see what afterwards happened.
It's just incredible.
Gone, right? Gone. It's unbelievable.
And Doc, this shows what happened in Gilchrist.
There were 500 homes in Gilchrist before the storm. Only 2 survived that were livable.
This home stands out like a sore thumb, being able to survive that type of a storm surge.
And he had built this after Rita in 2005, and he built it higher and safer.
So this is right after the storm's come through. It's still taking a hit here.
Absolutely. It's still completely surrounded.
This tells the story in one picture why, when these hurricanes are coming for the coast, you've got to take these evacuation orders seriously or you risk your life.
And I would say that, David, even in a weaker storm, even a 1 or 2, don't risk it because the storm might strengthen before making landfall. That's what happened in 1983 with Alicia. It doubled in strength in the last 18 hours before landfall. So I'm going to stay out here. It's only Category 1. No. Get out.
And you can see in the before and after pictures on Galveston down toward Jamaica Beach, it's bad, but it's not nearly as bad.
There were 5,000 homes on the Bolivar Peninsula before the storm. 3,500 of them were totally destroyed. The storm surge on the Bolivar Peninsula was 16 to 18 feet. On the west end of Galveston Island, it was less than 10 feet. What's going to happen on the west end of Galveston Island if we have a repeat of the 1900 storm? I don't have to speculate. This is what's going to happen. We've been very fortunate over the last decade or 2. We just haven't had any big hurricanes.
Yeah.
But that hasn't always been true here.
After the storm surge, the most dangerous thing about a hurricane is the wind. Hurricanes are broken down into 5 categories based on their wind speeds. A Category 1 has sustained winds of 74 to 95 miles per hour. A 2 has 96 to 110 mile per hour winds. At level 3, the winds grow to 111 to 129 miles per hour. A Category 4 storm, winds of 130 to 156. And a Category 5, the strongest on the scale, winds are higher than 157 miles per hour. That's the same as a strong tornado. You definitely need to take this seriously. Don't be surprised if trees and other debris have knocked down power lines. When this happens, the electricity can be out for weeks. So the question you might be asking is, should I call 911? The answer is an important one, not unless it's an emergency. Our emergency responders are hard at work during a hurricane trying to protect the city, coordinating evacuation efforts, and even rescuing victims of the storm.
I'm with Judge Ed Emmett at the Emergency Operations Center of Harris County, and really, what goes on here?
Well, during any emergency, of course, we know hurricanes best of all, but in any emergency, this is where Harris County and all of our partners, public and private, come together to share information, make sure we respond appropriately. We have different levels of activity here, and level 4 is normal, but if we go down to level 3, we start calling people in. Level 1 is full activation. We will never be in a situation where we don't know what the other parties are doing, but we're all going to be in the same room, we're all going to have the same information, and you see all these screens, we have access to everything. It's important that we coordinate and that decisions that we make are made with the same information in mind. So that's what this is all about.
Knowing what to expect before a hurricane hits Houston can help you be better prepared.
Knowing what's coming during the storm will help you make smart decisions that can keep your family safe. And with the Harris County Emergency Operations Center up and running and your KHOU 11 weather team working around the clock to keep you informed, you can rest easy knowing that you're in good hands.
Up next, you've made it through the storm, but that's just the beginning. How to survive the aftermath.
No power, no water. Chances are, it's hot. This is life after a hurricane.
And it can take days, but it usually takes weeks to get back to normal. Until then, it's up to you to survive.
I think a lot about what it must have been like back then. There was no way of knowing what was coming. One minute you think it's just a bad thunderstorm, the next you're fighting for your life. And even now, with all the technology that we have, we're able to track a storm when it's starting to develop. We're able to track that system. However, a hurricane is one of the most powerful forces on the planet, and there's just nothing we can do to stop it. 2008, Hurricane Ike, a huge Category 2 storm with wind speeds maxing out at 110 miles per hour and a storm surge of 12 to 16 feet. The Bolivar Peninsula took a direct hit from Hurricane Ike. Thankfully, most people evacuated before things got too bad, but some, like Carol, were trapped here, forced to watch helplessly as entire neighborhoods were wiped out around them.
My plan was to leave before we were stranded. We went out to the highway and we were stopped by many vehicles that said, don't even try to get out. The ferry's down and Gilcrest and Rollover Pass are underwater. You can't get out by High Island. Turn around and go back. You'll be washed away. I realized that we were going to have to ride it out. As fast as your hands moved, the water was just coming in 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet within no time at all. By 6 in the evening, water was over the deck, which is 16 feet high, and the hurricane was still 8 hours out, so we knew we were in real deep trouble. I cannot explain how ferocious it was with the waves. So water would gush in with fury and hit the ceiling, which would blow anybody away. I just got on the floor and held on to whatever we could not to get washed out. It sounded like a train right over top of the house. The biggest whoosh I've ever heard in my life was this whole block on the left. I watched the whole block go, the whole block washed right away. After the hurricane, we looked outside and there was essentially nothing left. It was like a bomb had gone off. Houses were in the road, cars were in the road overturned, pavement was even torn up. There was an awful lot of damage, and we were stuck.
Galveston may have been spared from the worst of Hurricane Ike, but there was still plenty of destruction.
Galveston Island resident Joseph chose to stay and ride out the storm. If you're going to do this, you better be prepared for a wild ride. Joseph, your life was at risk. You know this.
Yes, I did, especially when they were on the radio and they were saying to write your social security number on your arm so that way they can identify you.
All right, what did you see? What happened?
When it was happening in the middle of the night, like the destruction and the wind and the water rising and things still being on fire, and then how can things be on fire when there's 4 foot of water? It was very, very scary.
Talk about your preparations or the lack thereof.
I wasn't really in tune with what was going on at the time. I just didn't think of the severity until once I was in the thick of it. I was like, whoa, you know.
The storm's hitting. What's happening?
Well, I stayed with a friend of mine. As the water started rising, it started rising actually kind of pretty rapidly. We had to get to higher ground. That was the wild night.
195 people lost their lives in Hurricane Ike. After the storm blew through, the city was a mess. Windows were blown out of the buildings, trees were down all over the city, there were pieces of debris and even boats washed up well inland. Hundreds of thousands of people were without power. One of the best things about this city is that Houstonians always help each other out during these tough situations. Crews start on repairs as soon as possible after the storm, restoring power, making the drinking water safe again, clearing the roadways. After Hurricane Ike, thousands of people were without power, food, water, and other necessities. So community organizations like the Food Bank, the Red Cross, and other organizations came together to make sure those in need received relief supplies. I'm here with Brian Green and Jessica Dabowski, and y'all have been through so much, but Brian, during Hurricane Ike, what was it like?
The issue with Ike was knowing what to do and getting resources set up quickly to respond. And so we had about 200 sites that volunteered to be points of distribution for disaster relief.
Jessica, during a disaster, what does the Red Cross primarily do?
The main thing that we do is provide mass care services. We help with family reunification, distribution of relief supplies, as well as feeding and sheltering of the general population. During a disaster, every situation is different, and there are different needs in our communities. And so some of the major supplies we distribute are cleanup supplies, bleach, masks, rakes, shovels, trash bags, and sometimes first aid kits.
What would be some tips that you would give to those at home?
One, do your best not to need our services, because following a disaster, I mean, it's great that the community does this, but it's not nearly as good as being able to take care of yourself. Two, 211. That's how the community can then know, well, where is it? If you need assistance, where exactly where you go.
We'll work with 211 to communicate all of our sites where we will be distributing relief supplies, because the need's going to be different no matter what the disaster is.
Maybe the most important thing to know about hurricanes is that these are long-term events. It can take a day or two for a storm to completely clear the area, and then weeks for the city to get back to normal. This is why it's so important to be prepared to hunker down for the long haul. When we return, see what you can do right now to teach your family about hurricane season and how the KHOU 11 weather team can help.
KHOU 11 has a long history of leading the way when it comes to forecasting and tracking hurricanes.
There is the eye of the hurricane right there.
Today, we continue that legacy with a commitment to making sure you're never caught off guard.
See this? It's the KHOU 11 Hurricane Preparedness Guide. And yes, it's made of paper.
But consider the fact that you probably won't have internet access during or after a hurricane. The guide is full of important information on how and where to get help if you need it. It's also a great teaching tool. You can use it to show your children how to track hurricanes and why that's important.
You can also go to Hurricane Central on KHOU.com. It's a website that the entire KHOU 11 team personally keeps up to date, so when the big storm strikes, you know where to be.
And of course, you can always find us here on the KHOU 11 app. With the KHOU 11 app, you can track storms along with us and receive warnings in real time, even if your power's out.
During hurricane season, we're here 24/7, and we're always keeping an eye on the tropics.
Our hurricane forecast models can see storms developing days, sometimes weeks ahead of time, and make predictions about their path. That helps you prepare. With the KHOU 11 weather tracker, we can take you literally inside the storm to show you how much rain is falling and where it's headed next. That helps you know. And joined by the rest of the KHOU 11 news team, we can provide information about shelters and where to find help after the storm. That helps you survive. See, to us, forecasting hurricanes isn't just a job, it's personal. We want to make sure every one of you has the information you need to stay safe and protect your loved ones and belongings. So remember, during hurricane season or whenever severe weather strikes, KHOU stands for Houston.
Thanks for watching Hurricanes. Prepare, Know, Survive. Brought to you by Joe's Crab Shack.